I grew up with Anna Hand, and our love blossomed naturally into marriage. But when my company went bankrupt and my parents fell gravely ill, she coldly revealed that every hardship I had faced, was the result of her years of careful plotting. She had hated me for a lifetime, simply because I had once stopped her from running away with the man she loved, abandoning her studies to elope with him. Even though he had a notorious reputation, with his ex-girlfriends all accusing him of being a heartless, irresponsible man who would leave after a fling. Anna refused to listen to anyone's warnings. After Rebirth, I chose to ignore her, skipping classes. She was finally able to be with her true love, just as she'd wanted. But in the end, she blamed me for not reaching out when she strayed and made mistakes. I told her, let go of this obsession with saving others, mocking others' fate is something you taught me. On study hall, Anna Hand raised her hand, clutching her stomach, asking to go to the restroom. I glanced at her flushed face and calmly turned back to my work. A short while later, there was an uproar near the school's wall. Anna Hand had climbed over the school wall to skip class and had fallen, breaking her leg. She was rushed to the hospital. In Mr. Miller's office, Anna's mother, Mrs. Hand, grabbed my hand and sobbed uncontrollably. There are only 2 days left before the university entrance exams, and Anna is hurt like this. What are we going to do? George, I'm sorry to trouble you, but during the exams, can you please help take her back and forth? Mr. Miller hesitated, looking at me. Then at Mrs. Hand. I remembered the last time the Hand family showed their true colors, and I yanked my hand free from Mrs. Hand's grip. Mrs. Hand, I'm a boarding student. It's not convenient for me. Mrs. Hand's crying faltered, her expression one of surprise as she looked at me. Didn't you used to like Anna the most? You even said you wanted to marry her when you were little. I spoke seriously, Mrs. Hand, that was when we were kids. Besides, our family moved a long time ago. And it's out of the way for me. Mr. Miller seemed to sigh in relief and quickly gestured for me to leave the office. Parents who habitually take advantage of others would raise a daughter who couldn't see the gravity of her actions. In my past life, I had been cornered, trying to stop Anna from meeting her so-called true love. In my attempt to catch her when she jumped off the wall, I sprained my arm. That injury affected my performance on the university entrance exams, causing me to miss the chance to get into my dream school. I loved her. I respected her. But she saw me as manipulative, disgusting, and utterly twisted. Through her repeated machinations, the company I had painstakingly built collapsed, and my parents both passed away. I was left completely broken. After that, Mr. and Mrs. Hand washed their hands of me, eager to sever all ties, never once thinking about the years we had spent as neighbors and friends. Because you made the decision for me, stopping me from meeting him, I lost my chance to confess my feelings to him, she told me. She told me, in her own words, that she hated me for the rest of her life. Now that I had the chance to live again, I decided to move away, distancing myself from Anna. I made the choice not to interfere with her pursuit of freedom, not to stand in the way of her true love. All I hoped for this time was that she could lock her life away with her true love, and never come back to ruin mine. After the results of the university entrance exams came out, Anna underperformed, missing out on her dream university. But she got what she wanted, she ended up with Henry Collins. At the class reunion, she made her presence known. Arriving with Henry Collins in tow. Mr. Miller had been shaking his head non-stop ever since he saw her. Janet, our desk mate, filled me in on the details. Anna deliberately answered a few questions wrong so she could get into the same school as Henry Collins. And her parents? Totally unreliable. They not only showed up late to bring Anna to the exam, but they also had the traffic police help them find her admission ticket. With that kind of disorganized mentality, even if she hadn't made any mistakes, there's no way she would have gotten a good score. Such a shame. Anna's grades weren't terrible, and she could have easily gotten into a decent top-tier university. But ever since she met Henry Collins, she threw all her focus on him, completely disregarding her future. Henry Collins had average grades, so if Anna wanted to attend the same university as him, she had to make sacrifices. And from that point on, Anna willingly let herself fall. I heard Mr. Miller tried to convince her to retake the year, but she turned him down. She's out of her mind, isn't she? Throwing away her future for some uncertain relationship? I knew the reason behind her actions. Henry Collins came from the prestigious Collins family and was a well-known rich second-generation heir. Anna believed that if she just held on to Henry, she would have a bright future without needing to put in any effort herself. It was a complete departure from the path we had worked so hard for over the years, and from then on, we'd be walking separate roads. But this was her choice. How it ended up was none of anyone else's concern. Maybe because we couldn't help but glance at Anna from time to time. She noticed and quickly came over with Henry. "George, I heard from my mother that you don't care about our friendship and you refuse to take me to the exam? After everything we've been through?" She spoke with the pride of a princess, immediately confronting me. Janet was almost ready to jump up in anger, and her words made the lively atmosphere of the reunion suddenly freeze. I held Janet back, speaking in a cold, indifferent tone. "We boarders have transportation arranged by the school. Is there a problem with following the school's arrangements?" It was the first time I had ever spoken to Anna with such coldness. Sure enough, her face immediately dropped. "I have difficulty moving after my fracture, don't you know?" Anna said, her tone one of sheer entitlement. "You've been eating and living at my house for so many years, and now, when things get tough, you just disappear?" Indeed, I have known her for more than 10 years and we often played together when we were young, so it is natural that she has the illusion that I always put her first in everything. I knew her well. And I knew there would come a day when she would blame me. But I hadn't expected it to be now, in front of the entire class and Mr. Miller, trying to tarnish my reputation and paint me as an ungrateful villain. Seeing her shamelessly trying to manipulate the situation, I couldn't hold back any longer. "If you mean, when I was a kid and I went to your house to wait for you to go to school, and your mother stuffed breakfast in me hands that you didn't have time to finish, then I did eat a lot. But over the years, my family has sent plenty of gifts to yours. All things considered. I think we're even now, aren't we? Those breakfasts were meant to be a way for Mrs. Hand to ensure Anna ate, but Anna, always obsessed with staying slim, had me finish what she couldn't." Her face froze, obviously she didn't expect me to say it in front of everyone. "But we grew up together." Anna's expression softened, as though she was on the verge of tears. "You have a boyfriend now, don't you? You've kept emphasizing our childhood bond, doesn't your boyfriend mind?" I interrupted her, turning the situation back onto her. Anna instinctively glanced at Henry, who was standing beside her. I could see his expression darken, his anger barely contained. "Henry, I don't have any feelings for him, I just came to ask him why he didn't send me to the exam," she said quickly, attempting to deflect. At that moment, Janet spoke up, perfectly timed. "Anna, your parents are still alive, why do you need George to take the exam? Is it because you didn't perform well and want someone to take the blame? Or are you upset that your exam results dropped so much that you don't want to go to that third-rate university?" I gave Janet a grateful smile. The words landed with force, and Henry's face turned an even darker shade, as if it had been scorched. Anna, on the other hand, was completely thrown off guard. "No, I deliberately answered the questions wrong for you, so how could I regret my exam results?" Anna hurried to focus on Henry, trying to show her affection, no longer concerned with me. The farce ended, and no one cared where they went. Once they left, our table quickly returned to its lively atmosphere. In my past life, I became the villain who stopped her from being with Henry. The thorn in her side for over a decade. It wasn't until my business collapsed, my parents passed away, and I was left broken that she even made a special visit to the small apartment I rented. There, she poured out her hatred for me, every word dripping with bitterness. "Your interference ruined my chance with him. You'll pay the price for your meddling." She was consumed by rage, her eyes bloodshot, her voice hoarse and desperate. It all stemmed from hearing the news that Henry was getting married. At that moment, I was gravely ill, unable to lift myself from the bed. And unable to utter a word. She, however, went to the stove and set a pot of water on to boil. "You deserve to live in the gutter, to die consumed by guilt and regret," she spat. The water on the stove began to boil, but she closed the door and windows, leaving me alone in the apartment. The stove went out, and the gas leaked. In my vivid dreams, I relived the painful years of my failed life, flashing by like a carousel. So, in this second life, I knew that there was no need for me to make the same mistakes again. To sacrifice my life for her. I let go of the idea of doing what's best for her and chose to wish her well from a distance. After a few rounds of drinks, the conversation turned to everyone's future, and Mr. Miller's voice was tinged with emotion. "The university entrance exams is like crossing a single-plank bridge, yet some people still jump off halfway. Thankfully, the other students are steadfast. I'm especially glad that George hasn't been influenced by anyone." I raised my glass, toasting to my past self. Here's to a bright future for everyone. And a new chapter in life. After years of hard work, the university entrance exams was the moment we all hoped would lead to a better future. Who wasn't striving for that? After the summer vacation, we we all set off for our bright futures. At the train station, I unexpectedly ran into Anna and Henry, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. In the crowded waiting room, I saw Anna impatiently grab her luggage from her parents. They huddled together, discussing their upcoming university life. When she spotted me from afar, she even shot me a glare. Our destinations were nowhere near the same. I couldn't care less if she would ever remember me. After all, I was heading east, and she was heading west. I was going north, and she was going south. From now on, our lives would likely never cross paths again. After boarding the train and passing through the ticket check, I received a message from her: "You'll regret this." Of course. I would regret not blocking her sooner. I didn't respond a single word. I immediately deleted her and freed myself from her influence. She had chosen to give up her promising future and attach herself to Henry, forcing herself into the role of a parasitic vine. From then on, she would have to fight off all the temptations around Henry, endure his fickle nature and constant dissatisfaction, desperately trying to cater to his whims and keep him by her side. Meanwhile, I stepped into the university I had always dreamed of, embracing a new chapter of my life, where I could freely chart my own course. Over the 4 years of college, I threw myself into my studies, participated in various campus competitions, worked part-time, and volunteered for activities. I met many interesting people on campus. We shared common values, each of us striving towards a bright future with our own strength. The rich university life left little room for me to think about her. Although I occasionally heard from Janet about Anna and Henry's constant breakups and reconciliations, I realized I truly didn't care anymore. Just before graduation, someone suggested organizing a reunion for our high school class. It was at this gathering, 4 years later, that I saw Anna again. Before Anna arrived, Janet had already revealed the biggest news of the night. Anna had already been dumped by Henry. After the semester started, with temptations everywhere, and Henry being that kind of playboy, Anna was afraid he would change his mind, so she tried to hold on tighter. But what she didn't realize was that the tighter she held, the faster he slipped away. Henry's novelty wore off before the first semester even ended. They broke up and got back together, tangled in a cycle for 2 years. In their junior year, the Collins family paid to send Henry abroad to study in France, and that's when they finally broke up for good. Henry's new girlfriend came from a prestigious family, perfectly matching him in both status and background. They went to France together, preparing for their future careers back home. As for Anna, she was long forgotten by him. He probably didn't even remember her name. The classmates burst into laughter. Then, someone awkwardly realized that Anna was standing at the door, coldly staring at us. "Cough, I'll go call the waiter to bring the food," someone stammered, trying to cover the awkwardness. It was definitely a bit embarrassing to be caught by Anna right then. Anna stood at the door for a moment, before lifting her head high and striding in with her heels clicking sharply on the floor. How should I put it? She still had that dazzling glow. The kind of beauty that made her stand out in any crowd. But there was something about her now that felt a bit out of place with the rest of us. She hadn't even graduated yet, but she already carried a certain maturity, as if she just entered the workforce. The group of people who once didn't understand why she abandoned her studies for love now seemed even less interested in questioning her choices. Instead, there was more mockery and a sense of waiting for her downfall. Sure enough, every decision at a crossroads leaves its mark on the path of life. In the previous life, after I stopped her from ruining her future, she went on to enter her dream university, where she had access to completely different platforms, resources, and networks than she did this time around. That had led to the rise of Anna as a successful businesswoman. But now, without my guidance, she wasn't even on par with the students who used to sit at the bottom of the class. The idea that choice and effort complement each other, and that both are necessary, really wasn't without reason. Although I was full of mixed emotions, I decided to treat her as a mere passerby in my life. As the party ended, Anna remained nothing but a distant figure in this life. However, throughout the event, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was deliberately or subconsciously keeping her eyes on me. Even after the party ended, I received a message from an unknown number: "Why didn't you stop me?" It seemed like Anna regretted the wrong path she had taken years ago. But if anyone was to blame for that regret, it was her, not me. The fact that she and Henry didn't end up together wasn't my fault. Love between two people inevitably fades with time, erasing passion and sharp edges. After the novelty wore off, maintaining a relationship took careful effort from both sides. Moreover, Anna's repeated mention of her sacrifice, deliberately answering questions wrong in the entrance exam for his sake, had become the spark that set their relationship on a downward spiral. Henry never appreciated Anna's sacrifice. It's up to you whether you were late for your university entrance exam or whether you intentionally messed up the answers. You're an adult, you should be responsible for your choices. After their fallout, Henry left for France without leaving any room for reconciliation. Their story gradually became the cautionary tale Miller used to teach freshmen. Janet grew more animated as she spoke, even starting to pity Anna. She had a good hand, but she messed it all up. I wasn't concerned. Everyone's pitying her, but she might still be blaming others for not helping her out. You don't think she regrets it? Janet asked, surprised. But if someone had stepped in to help, maybe she'd actually turn out better. I smiled faintly. Who knows? Maybe she'd end up resenting anyone who tried to interfere. Really? Janet was even more shocked. I knew that was true. Because I was the one she had hated for an entire lifetime. Now, I'd finally let her return to the life she was supposed to have. The casual chatter was suddenly interrupted by a sharp cry from Janet. He showed me Anna's social media post. It read, "If people could come back to life. I hope I would be the first one to wake up." A bucket of cold water drenched me from head to toe. I suddenly understood the meaning behind the looks Anna had thrown at me during the party. Those gazes were full of disgust, envy, and hatred, a complex mix of emotions. She might have remembered something, which only deepened her resentment toward me. She might have attributed everything, the failed life of the past and the present life that wasn't fully over, to me. The regret she felt wasn't about her wrong choices. It was about regretting not getting a head start when she had the chance. I immediately called my business partner. A second chance at life is a rare thing, and I hadn't been idle. During my time at school, I had already started my own business, guided by the memories of my past life. I even found a solid backer to help stabilize things for the company. My partner, Daisy Rockefeller, was a sharp-minded second-generation heir. She had money, time, and a knack for getting things done. I brought the tech expertise, she brought the capital, and together, our company quickly rose through the ranks, leaving competitors far behind. As soon as I made the call, she quickly dug into the recent market turbulence. Someone suddenly doubled their investment. Something's off. In the business world, there's nothing more dangerous than a baseless price war. Anna was reusing the same old tactics from past life, trying once again to destroy my company. I had originally planned to let her off the hook, but my anger flared up. I don't start trouble, but when someone comes for me, I'll make them pay. So this time, for the lives lost in my past life, I was going to settle the score with her. Anna had learned from her mistakes and didn't use her real identity this time. Instead, she tricked some clueless college students into opening accounts and investing on her behalf. The money she was using probably came from the compensation Henry gave her after their breakup. If she had played her cards right, that sum could have elevated her life to a new level. But greed blinds the heart. She wanted to repeat her success from the past life, but she hadn't anticipated my defense this time. With Daisy Rockefeller's help, we quickly uncovered the mastermind behind it all. It turned out that Anna had once again allied herself with Jake Rockefeller, Daisy's half-brother. When Mr. Rockefeller was young, he had plenty of emotional debts, but because of his wife's powerful family, he was never bold enough to make waves. However, Jake's mother was a shrewd woman. She hid her pregnancy from Mr. Rockefeller and only approached him after giving birth to Jake. Although Mrs. Rockefeller stood firm in her position, Jake and his mother could never fully enter the Rockefeller family circle. That didn't stop Jake from plotting to seize the Rockefeller family fortune. His logic was simple: if he could ruin Daisy's reputation and make Mr. Rockefeller see his only daughter as a failure, the family legacy would fall into his hands. That's why he and Anna teamed up, setting their sights on our company. Don't worry. Just focus on the tech. He won't be able to touch me, Daisy said with complete confidence. I never expected to get involved in a family inheritance battle like this, especially one so personal. Naturally, I pressed for more details. Jake and his mother are just like that filthy woman, always with their eyes glued to money. But why doesn't he see who actually owns the Rockefeller family fortune? Daisy patiently explained the complex history of their family's internal struggles. It turns out Mr. Rockefeller wasn't a self-made entrepreneur, he was a man who'd married the right woman, saving himself decades of struggle. My dad has 1,000 tricks up his sleeve, but he still won't divorce my mom. The reason? More than half of the Rockefeller family's business relies on my grandfather, Robert Morgan. The Morgan family has never been involved in politics or direct business, but they've been a powerful, long-established family, skilled in investments. He doesn't dare offend my mother's family, and my mom doesn't want the hassle of divorce, so they've just been enduring it all this time. I feel so sorry for my mom. Daisy looked genuinely sad. But I wasn't sure how to comfort her. After all, the worries of the rich were a level of struggle I could never even begin to fathom. When you become rich, you'll understand, Daisy said, as though she knew what I was thinking, giving me a hearty pat on the back. Let me guess, you're about to say that money doesn't solve all the world's problems? Seeing her on the verge of sinking into sadness again, I quickly changed the subject. Anna's gone all in. You've managed to keep Jake under control for now. But I'm worried she'll do something that leads to mutual destruction. Just as if to confirm my fears, both of our phones rang simultaneously. Mr. George, the other side has released the formula for our product. Because of the formula leak, some clients are pulling out of contracts. Anna had actually gone for the scorched earth approach, throwing everything into chaos. She didn't care about the consequences at all. Anna and I rushed back to the company for an emergency meeting. The formula had been leaked, but honestly, I wasn't too worried. I had already updated and improved it. What concerned me most, however, was that after Anna made the formula public, she sent a legal letter accusing me of stealing her intellectual property. In other words, she was calling me a thief who copied her formula. I couldn't help but laugh at her audacity. But as I chuckled, the amusement quickly faded. Anna had pulled out the original invention manuscript for the formula. That manuscript was at my parents' house. I had no idea when she had made her move to get her hands on it. George, I know you once had feelings for her. But how could you give something as important as the invention manuscript to an outsider? The meeting was paused as Daisy pulled me into her office for a scolding. Daisy was 2 years older than me, and her face was set in a stern, businesslike expression. My head was spinning, but I didn't forget to distance myself from Anna. I don't know how Anna got the manuscript, whether you believe it or not. In front of her, I called my parents, who were back home. Anna said she was going to pick up some things for you, and since you two were close when you were at school, I just let her look through your room. Maybe it was the seriousness in my tone, but my dad grew alarmed. What's going on? Did something get lost? No, Dad. You and Mom should just go to your health checkups as scheduled. I'll talk to you later. Daisy finally dropped her hands from her waist, but I could see she was still tense. I grabbed the legal letter off her desk and flipped through a copy of the manuscript. As I skimmed through it, a smile began to form on my face. You can relax now. Even if the manuscript in Anna's hands is genuine, I can still prove it's mine. Under Daisy's arrangement, I attended the press conference called by the company as the technical representative. Anna was invited as the representative of the opposing side. Accompanying her was Jake, who had recently been on the receiving end of harsh criticism from Mr. Rockefeller. Unlike Jake, who looked defeated and downcast, Anna held her head high, exuding confidence as though she were waiting for us to defend ourselves. I had no intention of taking up resources, but after receiving a lawyer's letter, I have to respond. I began as the press conference kicked off, addressing the questions head-on. Miss Anna, you claim I plagiarized your invention manuscript. Could you tell us when and where your manuscript was created, and under what circumstances the invention was experimented with? I ask this question because, for me, the invention began during my freshman year while working a part-time job, sparked by a sudden realization. At that time, Anna was still caught up in her heated romance with Henry, so where would she have had the time for any inventions? As far as I know, Miss Anna is a student at a third-rate university, and her field of study has nothing to do with this invention. I didn't intend to embarrass her, but since she was using my own work to attack me, I wasn't going to hold back. Sure enough, Anna faltered, probably not expecting me to publicly challenge her academic background, even though it was, in fact, accurate. What I study isn't important. What matters is my interests and passions. I did well in high school, I only made a mistake on the university entrance exam. Does having a bad academic record mean I can't innovate? She was skilled at public relations attacks, just like in my past life when she had chipped away at my psychological defenses. Now, she was trying to turn the tables on me. You have time to study my academic qualifications, so why not explain to me why you applied for a patent for my invention and put it into production for profit? I could hold you legally responsible for that. Anna pressed on, relentless. I suddenly smiled. Miss Anna, given we grew up together, let me ask you, this manuscript, is it truly yours? Or should I ask, is this manuscript the original? Anna, facing the cameras now fully focused on her, raised her chin even higher. Don't think that just because we have known each other since childhood, I'll go easy on you. It's the original. It's my manuscript. What else do you want to ask? I clapped my hands together, as if brushing off some dirt, and said, Miss Anna, it's enough that you admit it's the original. The reporters in the room were completely confused by my words. Who gets sued for plagiarism and still manages to smile? I projected a series of Anna's social media screenshots onto the big screen. This manuscript dates back 3 years, but according to the development plan for this product, it would have taken at least a week for the reaction time, and the research would have involved months of repeated experiments, adjusting parameters. Oh, by the way, I'm not sure if you can understand the manuscript, but the notes on it are recording changes to those parameters. And during the period when Miss Anna supposedly wrote the manuscript, she was traveling all over with her then-boyfriend. Where would she have found the time for experiments? Anna froze for a moment before quickly retorting, I had an experimental team that did the work for me. She even shot a glance at Jake. Well, then perhaps Miss Anna can explain what the symbols in the bottom right corner of every page of the manuscript mean? It's just some doodles I made on the side. How does that have anything to do with this? Anna laughed as though she had just heard a ridiculous joke. I cleared my throat and said seriously. I happen to have a copy of the letter Miss Anna sent me along with the legal notice. Feel free to pass it around, everyone. This is the key to proving who the real owner of the manuscript is. Anna raised an eyebrow, about to argue, but I cut her off. It's simple. If you look at the back, you'll see that the symbol is an inverted version of my name, a signature I created unconsciously. I took the mouse in my hand and effortlessly replicated that signature on the screen, matching the handwriting on the manuscript perfectly. Of course, I'd welcome Miss Anna to request a handwriting analysis. However, the cost of that analysis will have to come from your own pocket. I pointed to Jake, who was already making his way out of the conference room, and added, you might want to let him know. Jake, fully aware that there was no way he could win after I revealed the symbol's secret, had already stood up to leave. Once again, Anna was left behind. Her face drained of color, looking like a defeated rooster, as she sat frozen in her seat. She never understood one simple fact, what's mine is mine. Even if she tried to steal it, it would never belong to her. From the moment she chose to skip class and take shortcuts, she had veered off course, never to compare with those of us who worked hard and followed the rules. I had my success, and she had her pursuit. If she could leap forward in life by taking shortcuts, that would be one thing. But once the limitations of high school were stripped away, once the filter came off, she was just one of many ordinary people. In the end, she would be lost in the crowd. By the time the press conference was over, all the necessary clarifications had been made. The companies that had threatened to cancel their contracts, realizing they were in the wrong, hastily placed more orders. With the factory's current production capacity, the shipment schedule was pushed to the second half of the following year. Even so, the company still needed to invest a significant amount of resources into repromoting its products. In response, Daisy made it clear that she would never let Jake and Anna off the hook. With the support of her grandfather and mother, she took full control of Rockefeller Incorporated. Cutting off Mr. Rockefeller's financial access and leaving him with just a card with a fixed limit. Jake finally understood who was in charge of the Rockefeller family. Realizing his cause was lost, he took the remaining money from Mr. Rockefeller's small personal fund and fled the country with his mother, no longer caring about Anna's fate. Daisy's legal team was top-notch, and they filed lawsuits against Anna and Jake, pointing out their various wrongdoings. In addition to Jake's domestic assets, which were frozen and auctioned off to cover the losses, Anna was also ordered to pay a hefty sum in damages. The Hand couple, who had lived selfishly all their lives, refused to sell their house to pay off their daughter's debts and instead kicked her out for being a disgraceful embarrassment. I later heard that after graduation, Anna, with no skills and unwilling to work hard, ended up as a bar girl. I didn't want to believe it, thinking she wouldn't fall so low. But when my company stabilized, and I went back to the countryside to bring my parents into the city, I ran into her on the street. If she hadn't called out to me, I wouldn't have recognized her at all. Gone was the proud look from years ago, replaced by the heavy scent of the streets. She had thick makeup on, drenched in perfume, and had matured in ways I didn't expect. The look she gave me was cold and venomous, like a snake preparing to strike. She seemed to want to swallow me whole. "So, you've made it big all these years," she said. She looked me up and down with a poisonous gaze, which made me feel very uncomfortable. "And you?" I shot back. "This is it. What else did you expect?" She shrugged nonchalantly, pretending not to care. Seeing my surprised expression, Anna let out a defeated sigh and continued to vent. "When Henry dumped me and went abroad alone, I kept having fragmented dreams over and over again. I dreamed that on the day I skipped class, you stopped me at the base of the wall and even caught me, but I didn't end up with Henry. But after that, I guess I hated you for a long time, and even ruined your company." Her gaze was full of guilt as she glanced at me. She stopped there, avoiding mentioning anything about what came after. I looked at her completely transformed face and, after a moment of silence, asked, "So, you thought you could steal my manuscript to bring me down?" She didn't answer. Instead, she spoke as if to herself, "Tell me, will there be a chance to start over in life? If I did, would you stop me?" I gave her a cold, unreadable look, rubbing my frozen hands. "It's just a dream. Don't take it seriously." I knew she resented me, wondering why I hadn't reached out to help when she made her mistakes and strayed off her path. But, wasn't it she who told me to mind my own business, not to interfere, to stop acting on my own judgment? The sun's setting. "I need to get home," I said, signaling for her to let it go. "You taught me to mock others' fates, not to care about them." The scenes Anna dreamt about were from a life I had actually lived. I didn't know what they meant to her, but from the moment she began dreaming them, she never once made an effort to change anything on her own. Why should I keep getting tangled up in her life? "Are you done? Your dad says dinner's almost ready." On the other end of the phone, Daisy's voice was light but playful. I waved toward the car waiting for me in the distance. "I'm coming. Be there soon." All I had to do was focus on my own, fresh start in life. Extra, Anna's perspective. After Henry left, I went through a very dark period in my life. My mom blamed me for not having the means to keep him, and my dad scolded me for being impulsive, for trading my future for an uncertain love. But the truth was, both of them knew what had happened back then. I tried to numb myself with alcohol, but I started having strange dreams. In those dreams, George caught me when I tried to climb over the fence to chase after Henry. He stopped me from going and made sure I applied to the college I wanted, setting me on a completely different life path. A seed of hatred quietly began to sprout in my heart. Why didn't he stop me? Why didn't he pull me back when I was making a mistake? At the class reunion, seeing him full of confidence and success made me insanely jealous. If he had only stopped me back then, I wouldn't be the one sitting there, surrounded by everyone's attention. When Jake found me, I was desperate for an opportunity to get back at George. We made a perfect team. Using the bond of childhood friendship, I managed to get into George's parents' house. That bond was something he owed me. When George's parents heard I was there to help their son get something, they quickly ushered me inside. It took no effort at all to find his manuscript. From there, things moved along smoothly. Jake first manipulated the market, putting pressure on George and Daisy's company. Then, I posted the manuscript on social media, accusing him of plagiarizing my work. But George was prepared. Not only did he prove that my timeline didn't match the timeline of the invention, but he also had a watermark signature on the manuscript. Jake, the illegitimate son, couldn't withstand Daisy's pressure and fled the country, leaving me to take the fall. I ended up buried in debt, and my parents were heartless, refusing to help me pay it off. So, I had no choice but to find work that could bring in some money. Years later, I ran into George again. I tentatively asked him if he believed in rebirth. Whether we could have a second chance at life. I tried to find a crack in his expression, but there was nothing. He said it was all just a dream, not to take it seriously. But in that dream, it was me who had the good life, and it was him who was suffering. I hated him. I hated him for not stopping me.